Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the anime Tokyo Ghoul, the first season and the second season, because they were running it on Toonami, and I was like, hey, I kind of wanted to see what this show is about, and so I was able to watch it, and I really enjoyed it. Now, I enjoyed the first season more than I did the second season, but I would totally recommend anybody into kind of like horror and like really well done action scenes and the deep dives into like some characters to really see this anime. So this follows the character of Ken Kaneki and his dealing with the world around him. Because in this world there are beings called ghouls that they eat people, but they're not zombies. They are highly intelligent and have supernatural powers. They're more in line with vampires that go full tilt into eating people more than just like brainless zombies, just noshing for brains and all that. And they have, like this world, the humans have to have like investigators and whole teams devoted to making sure that like ghouls don't go and like try and take out or take over and make them into pretty much livestock form. And it's like, holy crap, this is pretty interesting. So of course, it begins innocently enough. You wouldn't really think that it's like, oh, okay, we just see the bookish Ken Kaneki doing his stuff, being in school and all that, and he sees this pretty girl. And of course, he asks her out, and they go out on a date, and they're walking alone at night, and she tries to eat him. And not just not just kind of like innocently, mind you, or like, oh, I hope this doesn't cause you any pain, but I'm kind of hungry. She is full on, she's a predator. She knows what she's doing, and like, seeing Kaneki try to escape is like, holy shit. So, she's like throwing him around and everything and getting ready to eat him when they get into this construction site, and she's like over top of them, and these beams fall on them and injure Kaneki and kill Rize. And of course, we get through it, and it's like, okay, he's alright, but oh, this girl was killed as well, and we had to use her parts to save your life. And it's like, what does that mean? So what that does mean is Kaneki is now half human and half ghoul, and he's freaking out about it because when you start learning all this stuff about ghouls and that they cannot eat human food, and he tries to do that, and seeing that scene where he is freaking the hell out, he's trying to eat regular food, and it just makes him sick, and he has thrown it up, and him just freaking out at what's going on, and him like walking through, and he's like, I'm hungry, but I don't want to do it. He sees this ghoul eating this person, and he's like, oh. And evidently they are territorial. He's like, you can have a little bit or whatnot, and then we see this other ghoul pop up, this girl, and she just like kind of kicks the crap out of the one dude, trying to like keep him from doing what he's not supposed to be doing, like encroaching on territory and just going around killing people. And she tries to pretty much force Kaneki to eat and everything. So she takes him to this place called Onteku. And we learn throughout that this is more of a peaceful ghoul kind of society, and they're trying to help Kaneki kind of acclimate to his new existence. And the head person of Onteku is trying to kind of like use him as a bridge because there's bad blood between humans and ghouls. Each side thinks the other's a monster, and as we learned throughout the first season and the second season, both sides are kind of right. They're both monsters, and they've both done terrible, horrible things to each other. Now, granted, you gotta get to a point to like understand, kind of like push past it to kind of like move forward. Otherwise, you just destroy yourselves. So, of course, the first season kind of like follows Kaneki trying to like figure out who he is, trying to protect his friend Hide from the truth. And, of course, he finds out that one of the people that Hide's kind of friends with is also a ghoul, as he tries to like kill him and Kaneki. But, of course, he kind of like pops out and uses his Kagane, which is the kind of, how do I put it? It's, I don't know, it doesn't really go that in depth. It's like the ghouls have special powers, and each one is kind of like unique to them, almost like a fingerprint. He has kind of like Rize's kind of like tentacle kind of Kagune, and of course Hide's friend is pretty much trying to beat the crap out of him, but of course he goes kind of crazy and beats the unholy hell out of him. Now granted, he doesn't kill him and eventually becomes more of an ally to Kaneki, but I was like, holy shit. So of course, it starts going a little bit more in depth with kind of like ghoul society, and we find this one ghoul who's turned as a gourmet who gets infatuated with Kaneki. Now, I like the creepiness that they did with him because he eats other ghouls as well. And he's very fascinated with Kaneki and wants to eat him because he's half and half. So of course, he like has Kaneki kind of like trapped in a kind of like death kind of thing. They got this one dude trying to pretty much kill him, but of course Kaneki's able to like outsmart him and get out. And the dude, the gourmet's just got such a menace to him. It's like, holy shit, what the hell's going on? It's really creepy. But when you get into the second season, he's almost cartoonily, like, amplified. It's not done with the same amount of horror kind of element because it's such an obsession in the first season, and then it's almost amped up to kind of like a cartoony quality in the second season. I was like, what the hell? Because he would like smell this thing this cloth that's got his blood on it and everything, and just, it was kind of like amped up more and not in like a frightening kind of way. It was just like, okay. But it's like, holy crap. And it becomes a big showdown between Kaneki, Hide's friend, and Toka as they're trying to stop him from eating Hide's friend's girlfriend because he had a human girlfriend. And of course, he eventually gets wrapped up in Anteku as well and kind of sees their kind of point of view. And we learn that a lot of people in Anteku are past ghouls that have done wrong things and are trying to kind of atone and try and be better and try and help out because this is a coffee shop. They have it for people to kind of like meet and everything and just kind of like not be assholes kind of. Just like revel in coffee and just do things. Be like kind of find a common ground kind of thing. And at first you think, that sounds kind of stupid, but within how it's done in the first season, it's like, okay, that's pretty cool because for the ghouls especially, they kind of like make a special blend that's got like human blood and everything to kind of like help them out with feedings and all that. And of course this starts getting more into like the investigators parsing around. They saw that a ghoul had died. Other ghouls are kind of like coming around in there. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And of course we see this one dude who's turned like, he's got the alias of Jason, and we get introduced to a violent ghoul faction of Algiritri who pretty much want to take out humans and like use them as a food source. And that's about the extent that we get in the first and the second season. We do not get much information other than that, and we kind of just get glimpses of who these people are. So of course, it gets to the point where Algiritri wants to find out what happened to Rize, and they kidnap Kaneki, and this Jason dude tortures him. We learned that Jason was also tortured, and that this is kind of where he learned it. So just showing that violence begets violence, and just seeing Kaneki kind of break, and I don't know if he hallucinates, but I believe that it's more that, like, since he's got Rize's body parts in him, that Rize is somewhat in there, and she kind of, like, challenges him to kind of change who he is, because in the beginning, he was very meek and shy and not assertive and kind of just inside of himself. And then Rize's trying to like get him to be more of a bloodthirsty ghoul, but he kind of finds a balance of kind of figuring out how to utilize the strength effectively as he escapes, because he saw some shit. He was tortured really bad by Jason, using like centipedes in his ears, ripping off toenails and fingernails and cutting shit, and it's like, holy crap. Eventually killing two people that were trying to help him escape, and he just annihilates him and eats his Kagane, and it's like, holy shit. And of course, escapes. It's like, whoa. And we had learned a little more about like the investigators, because you're thinking, okay, how do they effectively fight these ghouls? Well, they kill ghouls, take their Kagane, and turn them into what they call Quinkeis, and fight them that way with the dead parts of other ghouls. We'd seen this because one of the investigators, Madao, uses some Krinkeis that are from people that certain ghouls knew. Like this one young girl, Hiname, she sees her father's and her mother's eventually when Investigator Madao is trying to like kill her. And of course, they're able to stop him and kill him, even though his partner Amon was busy fighting Kaneki because Kaneki was trying to stop everything from like getting too far out of control. And we kind of end this first season with Kaneki, after being tortured and everything, like pretty much telling the Toka that he's going to join Aogiri. And it's like, wow, that kind of doesn't really make sense. He doesn't really want to eat people. So we get into the second season, and my biggest complaint with the second season is it is not as tightly paced and focused as the first season. The first season is very much Kaneki's journey as he learns this change that has come over him. This one is kind of more spread out, and I will say it kind of suffers from a Bleach-like effect. In that it's very similar to the Soul Society arc, in that we have an explosion of players, but this really has the effect of being bad in a certain extent because there are only 12 episodes, rather where in Bleach we kind of had enough time to kind of get to know who the characters were. Now, as you see when I'm talking about reviewing shows and anime and everything like that, I really do like character development. But what the second season really hones in on that I have a problem with character development is when it overtakes the story and the plot of what is supposed to be going. You need to balance that out. What happens in this is we get more information on Investigator Amon and Madao's daughter, who becomes his partner, and focuses on different characters, but sometimes not enough. You don't really understand what exactly the main arc is till it gets to the end, and when you get to the end, there's even more characters thrown in your way, and it's not a mess because it still makes sense. I've seen some stuff that it just is an overall quality drop from the first one, because we get the introduction of Kaneki going through Aogiri, and you're now, okay, he's just trying to get stronger, understand who he is, what he can do so that he can protect Anteku. Makes sense. Yeah. Seeing the other parts in there kind of almost detract from that, and I wish that kind of had been the main focus, because we're introduced into some interesting concepts throughout, such as Kakuja, which is like what happens when a ghoul is eating on other ghouls, and we see Kaneki kind of transform into the centipede kind of thing, but nothing much is done with that, and nothing much is explored or explained effectively to kind of understand its importance in this season. It's like, okay, because we see like other things happening. We see the investigators using different kind of forms of Krinkeis and like armor from ghouls and all that to fight. We were introduced to the head guy at Anteiku's daughter because we get his backstory. Granted, it's so much in 12 episodes, and it's just not well paced enough to effectively let it breathe and let us understand, because we get the point at one point that he's like, oh, he's got a daughter. And then we get to the end and like, oh, okay, this person who we've seen, who's been in the raps and everything with Aogiri, and who is this author that Hiname and Kaneki like, is his daughter. And I don't know if it's her Krinkei to turn into a giant owl thing similar to her father or not, but it's like, holy shit, she essentially can create an exoskeleton thing of herself, but it's like, oh crap, because she's fighting the inspectors that had supposedly killed her father, but then she like gets to her father, eats him, I'm like, what the fuck? And then she like goes out and pukes him up and he's still alive. I'm like, what's going on? What? Because towards the end of it, the investigators go and pretty much destroy Anteku. They think that they're connected to Aogiri somehow. And of course, they're fighting them. They're fighting. One of the people had the control of the devil apes. One had control of the black dogs. They were trying to atone for their stuff, and we're fighting these investigators, just showing the overall thing of being monsters and violence begetting violence. Now, granted, it's more of a surface level than kind of like a deeper dive, but again, of course, 12 episodes. And we end with Kaneki having defeated Amon, And I don't know if he's dead or not because that was not very clear. And see, here's the thing. The ending of this season is not very clear. And that's mainly a negative in its execution. I don't mind an unclear kind of like ending where it's like, all right, you as an audience can figure out your interpretation of what happened. That's not really how this goes. One, I didn't know exactly what happened to Elmon because he was just left and Kaneki was able to walk. I'm like, okay. And then he's kind of like disappeared and his partner is kind of like grieving over his broken Queen K. It's like, okay. Hide eventually pops up again as well, and we find out that he knew what was going on with Kaneki, was trying to help him and help the people at Ontegu, and he evidently got a mortal or some kind of blow that like really hurt him. So Kaneki pretty much takes off his mask because ghouls wear masks to protect their identities, and he goes out and everyone's like, oh, it's the eye patch dude, and pretty much presents Hide to the investigators, and we get this badass investigator who's introduced like 2 to 3 episodes before the end of this season. It's like, what the hell? And I don't know what happened because it's Kaneki and him like locked eyes because he was effectively able to fight off the daughter of the head of Onteku, and it's like, whoa, okay. And at the end, we don't see what happens to Kaneki. Toka was going to go and try and help the Onteku people, but the guy, this kind of like badass dude who was put in charge of her by the head of Onteku, pretty much takes her away. And I read that at the end there's supposed to be a scene with Toka setting up a new coffee shop, but I didn't see that because I don't know why. They cut off some weird stuff when they sometimes air it on TV. It's just like, what happened to Kaneki? Because all we see is the head investigator dude with his kunkai in the snow and everything, and it's like, what happened and what was going on? The pacing just felt off with how it was focusing on certain characters and certain situations in certain ways that didn't line up with the kind of like horror seriousness that was going on in the first season. Not meaning that there shouldn't be any comedy or anything. It's just the type of comedy and how it was implemented kind of clashed with the tone that we had had previously and kind of janked up the pacing going through this season. And I'm just like, okay, I still like this, but this could have been better. If anything deserves a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood treatment, this could definitely do it because I'm like, listen, people like this anime. I've heard people talking about it. I'm like, this could be done better. Not that this is shit. I've seen shit and I know shit. This is just like not as executed and ideas are not as fully fleshed out as they could be. And that's where I'm like on it. I'm like, don't completely focus on character development that to the detriment of an overall plot that you can make sense of and kind of follow. Because you're like, okay, now we're focusing on this kind of a prison break. Now we're going to understand what's going on with the investigators. Here's what's going on in Anteku. Here's what's going on with Toka doing stuff to try and get into college. And oh god, what's going on at the end? We have now initiated a war, but we don't have enough time because we only have 12 episodes. It's like, oh, those are things that should have just been allowed to breathe. It's like, God. But I still enjoyed watching this. I can't wait to see what they do with like a third season. If they eventually are able to kind of like finish this up and see where it goes and possibly do another one because I really liked them exploring the world of the ghouls and the humans. Kaneki's journey of figuring out how to survive as a human as a ghoul and not see himself as a monster. And just kind of like digging into the issues of like the humans versus ghouls and seeing more stuff with the investigators and their history and Algeritri and their history. And I would really recommend this because some of the fight scenes are just amazingly well done. And there's one towards the end of the second season where it's with Amon and Kaneki where they do this one kind of art style during the fight that I'm like, wow, that's different, but I really like that. So if you like them digging into like characters and all that and good action scenes, even if the second season gets like screwed up with kind of like the balance and pacing of that going on, I would wholeheartedly recommend that you check this out. Now, if you're not into violence or gore or anything like that, stay away from this. Now, granted, it's not the worst thing I've seen, but it's still within the realms of like, The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, any kind of like horror movie you've seen. Yeah, if that stuff makes you, if you're kind of squeamish or anything, or like get nightmares easily, don't do this. Don't. But otherwise, I would think you would enjoy this. So those are my opinions on the anime. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.